The twin suns of Solara 9 burned softly over a golden desert, painting the alien sky in shades of blue and gold. It was a quiet day until the heavens split open. A human starfighter trailing smoke and fire tore through the clouds and crashed near the dunes. Dust rose like a storm, scattering light across the horizon. The villagers ran for shelter. But one girl didn't. Her name was Lyra. She was young, slender, with silver-blue skin and glowing amber eyes. Curiosity, not fear, guided her feet as she climbed the ridge toward the wreck. Heat shimmered around twisted metal. The air smelled of burning plasma and foreign oil. Then she saw him, a human soldier crawling out from the flames, coughing, his armor cracked and helmet shattered. "Stay back," he shouted, aiming a damaged blaster. Lyra raised her hand slowly. "I am not your enemy." The man blinked, confusion replacing fear. He had heard alien voices in battle before, but none that sounded so. "Gentle, I'm Commander Elias Ward, Earth Alliance," he said, lowering the weapon slightly. "My ship's systems failed." "Where am I?" "Solara 9, Lyra replied softly. "You are lucky. The sands here are kind?" He gave a weak laugh. "Doesn't feel that way." She stepped closer, helping him stand. Her touch was cool, almost soothing. For a moment their eyes met. Two beings from different worlds, both stranded between fate and sky. Over the next few days, Lyra hid him from the patrol drones that circled the skies. Humans were not welcome here anymore. War had made them symbols of destruction, and helping one could mean exile. She brought him water distilled from moon lilies, and food made from the glowing roots that grew beneath Solara's sand. Elias, in turn, repaired his broken communicator and crafted small devices to help her people purify water. Each evening, they sat outside her home, a small cliff dwelling overlooking the twin suns, and talked. He told her about Earth's oceans, about music, about rain. She listened with wide eyes, her heart fluttering whenever he smiled. Lyra had never met a creature like him. Humans were supposed to be greedy, loud, and violent, but this one laughed softly and thanked her for every kindness. One night, as the second sun set and the stars came alive, Elias looked at her and whispered, "When I return to Earth, I'll come back for you." Lyra tilted her head. "Why?" "Because," he said, smiling faintly, "I've never seen anything as beautiful as this world. Or you." She didn't understand all his words, but his tone was clear. It wasn't the language of command. It was the language of longing. A week later, the rescue signal came through. His fleet had detected the wreck's distress beacon. A transport ship descended through the clouds, engines humming like thunder. Lyra stood at the edge of the desert, her silver hair whipping in the wind. Elias turned to her one last time. "The war will end. When it does, I'll return. I promise." "Humans make many promises," she said quietly. "They forget them when they reach the stars." He smiled, pressing something into her hand, a small silver wing pendant, shining faintly in the sun. "Then hold this until I prove I'm different." Lyra looked down at the pendant. "I will wait," he hesitated. "For how long?" "As long as the stars remember your name." The ship's engines roared. Dust and light filled the air. Elias stepped aboard, turning one last time to see her silhouette framed by the twin suns, her eyes glowing like amber fire, her hand clutching the silver wing. As the ship rose and vanished into the clouds, Lyra whispered to the empty sky, "Don't make me a fool for believing in you, human." That night the desert wind carried her words into the stars. The silver wing glowed faintly in her palm, as if the universe itself had heard her vow. Under the twin suns of Solara 9, a young alien girl stood alone, waiting, not knowing that her love story was about to stretch across galaxies through silence, war, and time itself. Time on Solara 9 moved differently than on Earth. 1 year beneath the twin suns felt like 2 anywhere else. Yet to Lyra, time had become nothing but waiting. Every morning she climbed the high ridge where Elias's ship had once burned through the sand. She would stand there, her silver hair flowing in the wind, her eyes fixed on the horizon where sky met stars. She always whispered the same words, "Today he might return." But days became seasons. Seasons turned into years, and still no human ship appeared in Solara's skies. The war between humans and the Federation had worsened. The skies were full of smoke, not stars. Every signal from the outside world was blocked by military interference. Lyra tried sending messages, little transmissions encoded in old frequencies Elias once taught her. But none ever came back. She spent her nights by the communicator he left behind, listening to the endless static. Her friends began to pity her. Some began to laugh. "Lyra, the human is gone," said her friend Tari, shaking her head. "You waste your life waiting for a ghost." Lyra only smiled faintly. "He promised." "Humans keep their promises," Tari sighed. "Maybe in their own stories. Not in ours." To survive, Lyra worked in the observatory, the same one Elias helped her build from scrap metal and old parts. It became her sanctuary. Every instrument inside was a memory. The lens he polished, the transmitter he tuned, the silver markings he engraved with his own hands. At night, she would sit beneath the dome, writing in her journal. Day 154 since the crash. I saw the first star tonight. Maybe he's looking at the same one. Her words became her only companion. The people in her city started calling her the Star Maiden, the alien girl who waited for the human pilot who would never return. To some it was a sad story. To others it was foolishness. But Lyra didn't care. Faith, she believed, was not about proof. It was about love strong enough to outlast silence. One evening, after 8 long cycles, the Federation announced a decree. All human technology must be surrendered. Contact with humans is forbidden. Violation will be punished by exile. Soldiers stormed the observatory. They tore down antennas and smashed communication consoles. Lyra stood helplessly as the machines Elias built were destroyed one by one. When they reached for his pendant, the silver wing around her neck, she clutched it tight and whispered, "You will not take him from me." The soldiers hesitated, then left her among the ruins. That night, Lyra sat on the broken floor of the observatory. The stars above seemed dimmer now. Dust fell from the cracked dome as cold wind rushed through. She pressed the pendant to her lips. "Where are you, Elias? Do you even remember me?" Her voice trembled, the first time in years she allowed herself to doubt. Days later, a faint sound crackled through the damaged receiver, a burst of static that shouldn't have existed. Lyra froze. She adjusted the knobs, her hands shaking. Then she heard it. A signal, weak but clear. It wasn't a message. It was a pattern. 3 short beeps too long, then 3 again. It was his code, the one he used when he wanted her to find him during their first meeting. Lyra's heart pounded. "Elias?" she whispered. "Is that you?" No voice answered. Just static. But the pattern repeated, again and again. The signal came from far beyond Solara's borders, deep into the Forbidden Sector, a region destroyed during the final years of the war. No one went there anymore. Her people said it was cursed, a graveyard of lost ships and forgotten souls. But Lyra didn't feel fear. She felt hope. For the first time in years, she felt alive. That night, she packed what little she had, a water crystal, a star map, her pendant, and Elias's broken communicator. Standing outside her destroyed observatory, she looked up at the twin suns. "I've waited long enough," she whispered. "Now I will find you." The desert wind rose behind her, carrying sand like golden dust across the dunes. The horizon shimmered, endless, beautiful, and unknown. Lyra turned away from the city, walking alone into the wasteland. The soldiers would call her mad. The people would call her cursed. But none of that mattered, because somewhere beyond those stars, someone once promised her he would return, and if he had forgotten, she would remind him herself. Under the light of 2 dying suns, the Star Maiden began her journey, a girl chasing a broken signal across galaxies, guided only by faith and the memory of one human smile. The desert of Solara 9 stretched endlessly beneath Lyra's feet, glowing faintly under twin moons. The air shimmered with heat during the day and froze like glass at night. For weeks she traveled across barren valleys and broken dunes, following the faint pulsing signal that whispered through her old communicator, the last trace of Elias. Every few hours, the pattern repeated, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. A heartbeat of hope. She slept inside abandoned solar shelters, drank condensed mist, and marked her journey on star maps by scratching small symbols, the ones Elias once taught her to read. Her body grew weak, but her spirit burned bright. Because hope, once lit, refused to die. One night, as sandstorms howled, Lyra found an old Federation outpost half buried under dunes. Its antennas were broken, but its main tower still stood. She climbed inside, searching for shelter. The hall smelled of rust and death. Broken screens flickered faintly with forgotten data. She found a small console that still had power and connected her receiver. The signal became clearer. It wasn't random anymore. It was a message loop repeating the same coordinates again and again. The forbidden sector near the dead moon HFY. Her heart raced. That sector had been sealed after the final battles. No ship was allowed there. Not alien, not human. But she couldn't stop now. At dawn, she reached a trading post near the border. The place was filled with smugglers and scavengers. She kept her hood low, hiding her glowing eyes. At the hangar, a rough-looking alien pilot blocked her path. "No one goes into the forbidden sector," he growled. "You go there, you don't come back." Lyra placed a small crystal on the table, a solar gem worth a fortune. "I only need a small ship, one that can reach orbit." The pilot's eyes widened at the gem's glow. "Where did you—" "It doesn't matter," Lyra said quietly. "Will you help me or not?" He stared at her for a long time, then sighed. "There's an old scout craft out back. It's junk, but it might fly. You'll need to fuel it yourself. That's enough." As she turned away, the pilot called after her. "Who are you waiting for in that cursed place?" Lyra looked back, her amber eyes calm but filled with fire. "Someone who kept me alive without even being here." The craft was old and cracked, but its systems hummed when she powered it up. As it lifted from the sand, the world below grew smaller. Her village, her destroyed observatory, her memories. All shrinking beneath clouds of gold. She whispered to herself, "Elias, I'm coming." Through the cockpit glass, the stars stretched like rivers of light. It had been years since she last saw them this close. The emptiness of space felt vast, endless, and beautiful. A place where promises could either live forever or be forgotten entirely. 3 days into her flight, a Federation patrol detected her ship. Red lights flashed across her console. A mechanical voice spoke through static. "Unregistered craft detected in restricted space. Identify yourself or be terminated." Lyra's hands trembled on the controls. She turned off the transponder and dove into a debris field. Ancient remains of warships that had fallen decades ago. Explosions echoed in the distance as plasma bolts missed her by seconds. The scout ship shuddered under pressure, warning alarms screaming. "Not now," she whispered. "Please, not now." She twisted the controls, spinning between wrecks of forgotten giants, human and alien both, drifting like silent ghosts. When she finally broke through the debris, the patrol had lost her. The silence of space returned. Lyra collapsed back in her seat, panting. Her ship was damaged, but the signal was stronger now. Closer. She followed it until the stars dimmed and a dead moon appeared ahead. Cracked, scorched, surrounded by fragments of metal and drifting satellites. It looked like a graveyard. The signal came from there. She descended carefully. The moon's surface was gray and hollow, littered with the remains of old battle stations. Her ship landed near the edge of a massive crater. Inside the crater, half buried in dust, was a human vessel, rusted, broken, but alive. A faint light blinked from its core. Lyra stepped out of her craft, her boots sinking into the ash. The air was thin, cold, and full of static. She walked toward the wreck, her heart pounding with every step. Inside the ship, darkness. Then a flicker. Screens lit up, showing faded holograms. She saw the insignia, EAS Horizon, Earth Alliance Starship. And below it, a name, Commander Elias Ward. Her hands shook. "Elias? Are you—" Before she could finish, a voice spoke from the shadows. A recording, old and distorted. "If anyone finds this is Commander Elias Ward. Our engines failed during retreat. We're trapped near HFY. Supplies are gone. But if Lyra ever hears this, I kept my promise. I came back." Her knees gave out. Tears floated in zero gravity, shimmering like stars. He did return. He came back for her, and no one knew. The signal she followed wasn't a call for help. It was an echo, a memory repeating through the void, a love preserved by the machine he built for her. Lyra sat on the cold floor of the ruined ship. holding her pendant tight. She could almost hear his voice again, clear and warm. "When I return to Earth, I'll come back for you." Her lips trembled. "You did, Elias. You really did." She looked out at the stars beyond the cracked hull. The war was over. The pain was long past, but their story, it wasn't finished yet. For now, she would repair the ship, restore the beacon, and let the galaxy hear it again, a signal of love that had crossed decades in darkness. Because even if he was gone, his promise still lived, and sometimes faith wasn't about waiting anymore. It was about continuing what love began. The silence inside the ruined starship was heavy, like time itself had stopped to listen. Lyra stood among twisted metal, dim blue lights flickering against her silver skin. The faint hum of power still pulsed through the walls, as if the ship refused to die, just like the promise it carried. She ran her hands over the console where the message had played. The voice of Elias Ward, soft and broken, echoing across decades. "If Lyra ever hears this, I kept my promise. I came back," her heart ached. She pressed her forehead against the cold screen. "You did come back," she whispered. "And I wasn't here." Hours passed as she explored the wreck. Every corridor told a story. A coffee mug still floating near a seat. A torn jacket with human emblems. Photos of people who never made it home. Finally, in the control room, she found the core log still active. Elias's personal recorder. She touched the button carefully. The system flickered and came alive. Day 43, oxygen levels at 30%. Still no signal from Lyra 9. If this message ever reaches her. "Lyra, I tried. I looked for your planet for months. They told me Lyra was destroyed in the war. I refused to believe it. I searched until the engines gave out." His voice cracked mid-sentence, heavy with exhaustion and longing. "If you're alive, look at the stars tonight. You'll see one blinking brighter than the rest. That's me still trying to find you." The recording ended with static. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She looked out through the cracked glass of the command bridge, and there it was. A single star blinking faintly in the void. She smiled softly. "I found you, Elias. I found your light." She spent the next few days working on restoring the ship's power. She scavenged parts from her own craft, patched broken circuits, and reconnected the reactor core. The old vessel groaned but responded. Her goal wasn't to fly it. It was to reactivate the beacon and send his message back to the stars. So others would know his love hadn't vanished in silence. When the system finally powered up, the ship trembled. Lights flickered. Consoles flared to life. Then, an alarm. Unauthorized activation detected. Defense protocol active. Before she could react, mechanical arms unfolded from the walls, targeting her with laser sights. The AI defense system, ancient confused, mistook her for an intruder. "Override," she shouted. "I'm not your enemy." Commander Elias Ward authorized. Her voice was drowned out by a high-pitched warning tone. Biological identity unrecognized. Intruder detected. The ship began to shake. Automated turrets unfolded from the ceiling. Lyra dove for cover as plasma fire erupted across the corridor, melting metal and burning through walls. Sparks rained around her. She crawled toward the reactor bay, clutching the pendant around her neck. "Elias," she whispered, gasping. "I need your help. One last time." Inside the reactor bay, she spotted a console still blinking with partial control access. Elias's ID signature. Her fingers flew across the keys. She uploaded the last message recording, hoping the AI would recognize his voice. Then the ship's speakers came alive with static, and his voice, faint but clear, filled the corridors again. "This is Commander Elias Ward. Earth Alliance ID 4292 Alpha. Authorization override. Cease all defense action." The turrets froze mid-turn. Lights dimmed. The AI paused, analyzing the input. "Command recognized. Authorization confirmed." Standing down, Lyra exhaled shakily, her body trembling. The echo of his voice faded into the silence, and the ship grew still once more. She lay on the cold floor, staring at the ceiling, feeling her heartbeat slow. Her oxygen meter flashed red. The defense system had punctured one of her suit seals. Air was leaking. She dragged herself toward the control chair, coughing. "I didn't come this far to die," she whispered weakly. "Not before you see the stars again." Her trembling hands reached for the console and connected the last power conduit. The beacon system came online, a low hum filling the bridge. The ship's broken antenna realigned slowly, pointing toward the distant stars. Signal strength 42%. Ready for transmission. She pressed the final button, the same code that had guided her for years. 3 short. 2 long, 3 short, began to pulse into space once again. Her eyes fluttered closed as her vision blurred. There, she murmured. Your voice. Your promise. It's alive again. Her breath came slower now. The oxygen gauge dropped to 5%. The cold of the void crept into her body, but she smiled. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't empty. It was full of memories, of love that never faded. And then, something unexpected, a flicker of movement on her radar. A human rescue drone. It hovered near the ship, scanning for life. Its light swept across the hull, then fixed on her fading heat signature. Survivor detected. Preparing retrieval. The voice was robotic, but to her fading mind it sounded like him, like Elias calling her name again. She smiled faintly, whispering, Took you long enough. Human. As the rescue drone extended its arms and lifted her from the dying ship, she looked one last time at the stars, the same stars they once watched together on Lyra 9. The beacon behind her kept pulsing, sending Elias's words across galaxies once more. If Lyra ever hears this, I kept my promise. She closed her eyes, clutching the pendant against her heart. Somewhere in the vastness of the void, a human's love and an alien's faith had found each other again. Not in the same lifetime, but in the same eternity. And the stars, as if watching their reunion, began to shine brighter. Darkness. Soft, endless, and weightless. For a long time, Lyra floated between dreams and memories. She could hear voices, distant, blurred human voices, and calling her name. She wanted to answer, but her lips refused to move. Then, warmth. A hand gently touched hers. A voice, deep, older, but achingly familiar, whispered through the hum of machines. Hey, wake up, Star Maiden. You waited long enough. Her eyes fluttered open. The world swam into focus. Bright white walls, humming medical instruments, and a window showing the infinite stars beyond. And beside her bed sat a man with graying hair, a weathered face, and kind blue eyes. Elias Ward. For a moment, Lyra couldn't breathe. Her throat tightened, tears burning behind her eyes. Elias? She whispered. He smiled. Tired, disbelieving, full of emotion. It's me. She reached out with trembling fingers, touching his cheek as if he might disappear again. You're older, he laughed softly, eyes glistening. So are you. Lyra smiled through tears. Not by choice. I waited. I know, he said, his voice breaking. I heard your signal. Your beacon reached the rescue teams. They followed it and found your ship. She blinked, confused. My ship, but it was your message. Elias nodded, gripping her hand tighter. It was looping in the void for 30 years. You found it. You turned it back on. You gave it life again. That's how they traced me, too. Her eyes widened. You were alive? Barely, he admitted. After my ship failed, I went into cryosleep. The system kept me frozen until a patrol found me years later. When they revived me, the war was over. I spent the rest of my life searching for Lyra 9 and for you. Lyra closed her eyes, letting his words sink in. You came back. Even when the stars forgot me. He shook his head gently. The stars never forgot you, Lyra. You were the reason I survived. Every breath I took was because I promised I'd see you again. They sat in silence for a long while, hands entwined. The hum of the ship surrounded them like a soft lullaby. Outside, the galaxy stretched in silver light, the same sky where their story had begun. Finally, Lyra whispered, you kept your promise. Elias smiled faintly. And you kept your faith, she chuckled weakly. We both took too long. He looked out the window, voice low. Time doesn't matter anymore. We beat it. Over the next few days, Lyra recovered aboard the EAS Horizon 2, a new generation ship built after peace returned. Humans and aliens now worked together. The war was history. The crew treated her like living legend. They had all heard the story, the alien girl who waited among the stars. But for Lyra, none of that mattered. All she cared about was the man who now sat with her every morning, telling stories of Earth's oceans and showing her real photographs of rain. One evening, she stood beside him at the observation deck. The stars reflected off the glass like a sea of diamonds. Elias spoke softly. Do you ever regret waiting for me? Lyra smiled gently. No, waiting was my way of loving you. Even when I thought you were gone, I wasn't alone. Every sunrise on Solara, every whisper of wind, it reminded me of you. He looked at her, voice trembling. You gave me something no soldier, no hero ever had. A reason to come home. She leaned closer, resting her head on his shoulder. And you gave me something no alien ever had, and a reason to believe humans could love forever. They stayed like that as the ship drifted past the twin suns of a nearby system with two burning orbs that looked almost like Solara's. Lyra's eyes softened with nostalgia. I used to watch sunsets like these, she murmured. I always wondered if you were looking at the same light. Elias smiled faintly. I was. Every night before cryosleep, I looked out the viewport and thought, she's out there. He reached into his pocket and pulled something small and shining, the silver wing pendant he had once given her. You still have yours? Lyra touched the one hanging around her neck. Always. He fastened the other half beside it. The two wings glowed faintly, merging into one perfect symbol. Hours passed. The stars grew brighter. Lyra's heart felt light for the first time in decades. Her waiting was over. Not because he had returned, but because the universe had kept its promise. She turned to him. Do you ever think the stars remember love stories like ours? Elias looked at her and smiled. They must. Otherwise, how would they know to bring us back together? He took her hand and pressed it to his heart. You waited among the stars, and I found you there. Her voice was barely a whisper. And now? Now, he said softly, we write the rest of our story, together. Outside the ship's window, the stars flared brighter, as if the cosmos itself celebrated their reunion. The beacon they had reignited still pulsed through space, carrying their intertwined signals to every corner of the galaxy. 3 short. Too long, 3 short. A message that once meant hope, now meant home. And for the first time in forever, Lyra closed her eyes, not in waiting, but in peace. Because when the stars finally met, love had won. Not through time, not through war, not through miracles, but through 2 hearts that refused to stop believing. Moral. Love is not bound by species, time, or distance. It is the light that survives when every star fades, and the promise that even across galaxies, hearts that once met will always find their way back home.